Zach, we are back and we have an interesting audit to dive into today. We are taking a rebuilding team that we've actually been working on with a patron in our Discord community for a hot minute now. And we're starting to work this team out of a rebuild, and we're finally working it to a contender over the course of a season. Couple seasons of work, couple off seasons of work. You get it. Zach, I want to hear about this team. I want to hear about the league settings, the platform that we're working with, and all of the things. Zach, take it away with what we're working with.
All right, so we're looking at a 12-team league here, Bob. Roster size of 24, taxi of 0. Not cool. We're looking at a 1-quarterback, non-tight end premium, half-point PPR scoring. Very important to keep these in mind, Bob. Start 9, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and 3 flex spots that include a wide receiver, a running back, and a tight end. The rookie draft is already done. Last year, he was 4-10 in this league, 11th place in the standings, 12th place in points for. And that's your look here at the league snapshot, Bob. Why don't you give us a look here at the team snapshot?
Yes. So with this rebuilding team, we've built up a nice little bevy of assets, a nice little team to work with. At quarterback, we have Justin Fields, Will Levis, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Malik Willis. Being a 1 quarterback, Justin Fields is a pretty nice piece to have. Zach disagrees. But moving on to the running back position, we got Bijan Robinson, we got Jahmyr Gibbs, Dameon Pierce, and then we have our handcuffs in Tyler Algier, Devin Singletary, Damian Harris, who is another respective handcuff, Zach Evans, Eric Ray, and Hassan Haskins. So we're loaded up with some handcuffs here. Wide receiver room, really love having Amon-Ra St. Brown on this team. We got Drake London as well. I know some people out there are just over the moon that we have Drake London on this team. Treylon Burks as well. Rashad Bateman, Kadarius Toney, Jalen Hyatt, Sky Moore, Michael Wilson, Josh Reynolds, and Velus Jones. Look out for the bottom of that roster on your waiver wires. Tight ends, we got Greg Dulcich, Evan Ingram, Jake Ferguson, and Adam Troutman and Robert Tunyon. I don't mean to throw shade on any players, just having a little fun with our pal Johnny's team here. Looking at the draft capital we still have on this rebuilding team, we have a first-round pick, we have 3 second-round picks, and 2 third-round picks. In 2025, we have our first, second, and third-round pick and fourth-round pick. And in 2026, it looks like we have all of our standard picks as well in rounds 1 through 4. So we still have a nice bit of assets to work with this team. And I think it's time we talk about the core players, the players that we are choosing to build around. And he does have a note for us who he considers his core players. He has Justin Fields, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Bijan Robinson. Zach, you're in agreement. Spoiler alert to the segment. Talk about your core players, why you're building around these players, allegedly, even though one of them is in a trade. Zach.
Yeah, I mean, I got the same Justin Fields, Bijan Robinson, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Typically, the way I operate with this category in core players is players I'm not actively trying to trade. However, I will discuss later, Bob, why one of them is in a potential trade for this team.
Good deal. I also have that lineup of Fields, Bijan, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I did switch this up. I did have Jahmyr Gibbs in this lineup as well, but I do think that there's a discussion to be had about him, and I think he's going to factor into a nice trade that we're trying to get done later. I haven't put that together yet. I actually just put that together in my brain, Zach. So look out for that later as we get to it. But yeah, so I'm building around this group. I think this group is great. We got Bijan, who's locked in for a good bit of time. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's been just a great asset already. Justin Fields coming into his own. With our core players out of the way, players we want to build around. You know, that's what we always want to do. We want to have a base, build off of that. But what now going forward, looking at team needs and trajectory here? He does have a note for us. Johnny does. I feel I've navigated to a place where I can finally start competing for a championship. To just real quick, I think we can get to that point. I think we can compete with some of the right moves in 2023, but I don't think they're going to be easy moves to make. We do need to get somewhere with some of these pieces. But Zach, I want to hear what you have to say about his team trajectory and what your thoughts are, what this team can do this year most likely, and what you're looking to do in the future.
Yeah, so I'll address my team trajectory, and then I want to address the point there that Johnny made. For me, this is a fringe playoff team. And by no means does that mean I don't like this roster, right?
Sure.
I do feel, however, that there were moves made, whether you moved off of veteran players or you chose not to address veteran players, and we'll talk about that later as well, in the name of keeping this team young, which I understand that mindset. And that's a dangerous mindset to have in Dynasty because we don't want to be all young players. Like you look at the starting roster here, Bob. Is anybody besides Justin Fields in their third year?
Amon-Ra St. Brown would be going into his third year.
That's it, right?
And I mean Evan Ingram.
Well, starting
roster. Older player.
Sure. Starting
roster.
I
think Evan Ingram's a starting roster, arguably, but otherwise,
half point PPR. No, he's not. He's not.
Sure. Well, with what he has at tight end, maybe
I'd start Dulcich. So with that being said, I like setting this up for a 2024 like heavy contender run, and I don't disagree. This team could win a championship. Things have to break so right, though, right? I like setting this up to compete in 2024 just by playing it a little bit safer. That doesn't mean you can't compete this year. Like I just said, I think things will have to break right for that to happen. So my philosophy is let's have another year of nurturing this team and getting it safely to 2024. Like, let's not make any big mistakes. He has a target of Cooper Kupp on this team. I don't like Cooper Kupp for this team. That's not what I mean by a veteran player, because that's going to cost too much right now. And Bob and I had this discussion before we got on here. So for me, I'm keeping the parts as they are for the most part, unless I can upgrade at certain positions. What does this team need from me, Bob? It needs trustworthy, proven point scorers. There are no trustworthy. I mean, Amon is the safest one to me. And if Amon is your wide receiver one, that's to me, that's not good. You need to have another bigger, higher ceiling wide receiver one over. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. You know that. But by no means do I think he's like a top 5 wide receiver. And sure, things could break right for him, but he's a safe wide receiver one. He's not a sexy wide receiver one. So you need trustworthy, proven point scorers. And for me, you got to tier up somewhere on this team. First of all, I like the running back room. Don't touch the running back room. Do not touch it. I think that's a great build right there. Because that's what we want in running backs, right? Rookie contracts, starters, the end. No headaches at the running back position. Can I tier up at quarterback? Can I tier up at wide receiver? Can I tier up at tight end? And I'll talk about that in my trades. What about you, Bob? Where do you think this team is headed? And what do you think are some needs for the future for this team?
So like I said, I still think this team can compete in 2023, and maybe it's not super realistic because we are such a young team still. Like you said, we don't have a lot of reliable point scorers. You're hoping for a lot from Drake London and Treylon Burks, Rashad Bateman, who hasn't been able to stay healthy, and a tight end room who has, outside of Evan Ingram last year in a few games, not done anything. We like Greg Dulcich around here, but I don't trust him riding in as my tight end one into a year when I'm trying to compete. I can't get down with that at all, in all honesty. So I think we got some nice pieces, but I think we are a bit of pieces away yet from still doing that. I think we need stronger wide receiver starters. I need somebody, I tend to agree with Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I do think that the problem with that is there's a very short list of receivers that are super attainable that you can rely on to be more worth having than him. I think it's a list of about 3 or 4 guys. You have 3 of them listed in your trades. Just something to think about when you get into discussions like that. I'm also looking for just some general depth, because I think we need specific. And I'll say this too: we're only supposed to list 2 team needs, but I really want to upgrade wide receiver and tight end. Those are the 2 rooms that I want to make the absolute most upgrades at. And I'd like a quarterback too that is not Jimmy G, that I can rely on to play a few games if Justin Fields goes down with an injury, whatever the case is. And then I would like to add another running back that just gives me another layer of protection for God knows the injuries that are coming. Even though we do have those handcuffs around already, it would be nice to just have a little more flexibility at some point in the season for when the inevitable happens and a running back of this group misses 2 to 3 games. I think it's safe to say that is going to happen. So I'd like to do that. Some depth, some stronger wide receiver and tight end starters. But with all of that said, and the clock ticking on my trade that I'm trying to put together in my brain, I'm going to kick it to you first. But moving on to our potential transaction segment, always a fun segment. So we do have some notes before I kick it to you, Zach, from Johnny. Try to make a push for some proven veterans during the offseason and rookie draft, but could not find the right value. Should I wait till the season starts to see if I should invest in more proven talent, or should I try to push on pre-NFL season values and push to make trades now. So instead of waiting through the preseason process, does he want to make trades now or wait till he needs them in the season? And as always, we do like to ask if there are any players that you're looking to get on your team. His wish list contains T. Higgins, Jonathan Taylor, Cooper Kupp, Kendre Miller, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Keenan Allen, Christian Kirk. And he does note as well that Jonathan Taylor and Cooper Kupp would be his personal favorite targets. Zach, go ahead and just rip away all of Johnny's hopes with his wish list and dive on into your thoughts on these notes here while I try to whip up a last-second trade.
Yeah, so I'll start by addressing the note first. It is very, I don't want to say difficult to get trades done right now, but for me, as an invested Dynasty player 12 months of the year, I have made my moves already. I have decided the trajectory of my team, and I have decided what, for the most part, the roster is going to look like. So, and that's obviously not the mindset of a lot of Dynasty owners. I'm just saying you will run into that, right? Where you have to make it worth it for that other team, whether they're a contender, they're going to need pieces that can score points now, or whether they're a rebuilding team that is looking for future draft picks. And you have to make that decision if you want to do one or the other. This wish list, I don't like. I don't like this wish list. To me, none of these wide receivers, A, fit in your timeline, and B, fit in the category of what we've already described as an upgrade to what you have. And as Bob already pointed out, it is a short list, and I acknowledge that. But to me, that is just where it's at. Like, you got to upgrade at wide receiver, and it's got to be a young wide receiver. Or I'm looking at adding a veteran wide receiver on the cheap. And I'm talking like a Mike Evans or something like that, who I did not include in my trades, but that's where my mind is at. Can I add a guy who's probably going to score 200 fantasy points for a second-round pick? I mean, people were dying to move off of Mike Evans in March and April, okay? Trust me. I bought a lot of Mike Evans, and I'm not mad about it because I didn't pay that much to do it. I don't super love this wish list. I don't think you need JSN and Kendre Miller. I really like Kendre Miller, by the way. If you can get Kendre Miller for a good price, like, absolutely do it. I don't love JSN. Like, you have all these young wide receivers already, man. Like, no more. No more. Now, I know Bob's not going to like that. But I'm operating with the roster that you've given me, not a hypothetical roster in my head. So let me get to some of these trade pieces here. First of all, I'm cutting. I think Bob and I have the same cut list. Robert Tonyan, Bayless Jones, Hassan Haskins, Malik Willis, Josh Reynolds. You can try to see if you can move Hassan Haskins to the Derrick Henry owner. We've done this before. At this point, it's very unlikely with Tyjae Spears being there. So might just have to move on. Now, here are my trades. Let's have a discussion about this because I don't know if you guys are going to like my trades, but I see how this roster was built, and I get it. It's young. It has the potential to go nuclear, but it's missing like that one ingredient, and that one ingredient is alpha players. Yeah. This is a start 9. Half-point PPR, non-tight end premium. That means you need the big dogs. You're not scoring a lot of points off PPR here. So while Amon is great, stealing is limited in half-point PPR. Right. So here's my trades. I'm packaging Drake London and Treylon Burks for one of the following. Can I get Justin Jefferson? Can I get Jamar Chase? Or can I get A.J. Brown? Now, I included late-round picks in all those trades. JJ plus the 24 third, Jamar Chase plus the 24 third, AJ Brown plus the 24 second. And I'm doing that with the mindset that they're going to counter without the draft pick. And I'm like, cool, no problem. Here's Treylon Burks. Here's Drake London. Let me take JJ off you. Let me take Chase off you. Let me take AJ Brown off you. Now, Bob and I, we were having this discussion prior to the show. We don't know if this gets it done. I'm trying to do this. And if I have to include a second-round pick, I'll do it too. You need those premium point scorers in your lineup. Start 9, again, half-point PPR, and you got 5 potential wide receivers. You can't just Sky Moore, Rashad Bateman your way to a championship. You need guys who are going to have 20, 30-point games, and you don't have that right now. Not even – Amon's not even that. He'll have one game a season where he gets 30, but he's a consistent 15, 14, 13. So you don't have that guy. Can I package Treylon Burks and Drake London and get one of either Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, or A.J. Brown? That's what I'm trying to do. My next move, once again, I'm trying to tier up. Treylon Burks, Greg Dulcich, and a 24 second for Mark Andrews. Keep in mind, I've plugged all these into a DLF trade calculator. 1 quarterback league. These trades worked out pretty even. Last but not least, I'm including Justin Fields. I know he was in my core players, but can I get a better core player? Justin Fields, a 24 first and a 24 second. Nobody wants to hear that. I get it. But do you want to win? And I'm going for Patrick Mahomes. Because again, Justin Fields is a nice quarterback. He could have a great year. You can never depend on Justin Fields. I don't think Justin Fields is like the second coming of Jalen Hurts. I think Justin Fields is very, very dependent on his legs to score points. And that can be taken away like that. We've seen that before several times with a lot of quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes is not going anywhere for the next decade. So can I improve upon my quarterback position? In one quarterback, it's very valuable, very, very valuable to upgrade to either Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and I'd even include Jalen Hurts in there. But really, I'm only shooting for Patrick Mahomes here. I'm only shooting for Patrick Mahomes. So, Bob, I'm trying to upgrade, tier up at all these positions. Hopefully, I've given you enough time to get your hypothetical trade out of your head, put it on paper. Let me know what you think about mine.
Yep, I had to figure out a couple because there were some ramifications that had to be put into place that we had to make some moves. So I do struggle with I totally get that people love Drake London and people love Treylon Burks. Me personally, as a Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase and AJ Brown manager rosterer, I would have none of these deals would even make me like have a second thought. And that's just because I'm just generally lower on these players. You'd have to have the right people in place that genuinely believe that they might be getting a slight tier down, plus an additional wide receiver that can also be, a wide receiver 2, whatever the case may be. And I just don't have that belief for those players. So I'm a little jaded for sure, but I'm not going to rule it out. The values shake out. It's fair value allegedly. It is what it is. Love adding Mark Andrews. If we can get that done, big fan of that. And I don't hate moving on from Justin Fields to go to Patrick Mahomes. And I don't think you should. My only concern is where does that 21st look like it's going to end up if we're getting all these other deals done? It's probably a later first anyway, so it's not as big of a deal losing that. If it would be earlier, not as much of a fan. But all in all, I think your head is in the right place with what you're trying to do with this team. Yeah. You're trying to get more alpha pieces, which is what this team absolutely needs. We have a lot of the second tier guys already, or second or third tier guys already. We need those hammers, which has been a phrase I've been hearing all over the place. I don't know about you. I don't know where this hammer phrase came from, but apparently somebody's out there using the hammer phrase for like.
We need to bring an actual hammer in here.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know, but you got some in your trade targets, and I went back and I added some. So what I ended up doing, this is not the trade I added. This is just a trade I added kind of for or built off of to have somebody who I believe is going to be a reliable wide receiver starter, moving Rashad Bateman plus third round pick to go get Christian Kirk. I believe in Christian Kirk's talent. I believe in his role in this offense. And I think even though there's the discussion to be had that he might not be a super solid PPR option in this league because it is half point, totally respect that. But I still think he's going to get enough work that he's a decent value that you can rely on to fill out your wide receiver 4 or flex spot. Much more so than Rashad Bateman. I want any exit strategy I can find for Rashad Bateman right now. I want it. And I think you need to send a third round pick to have a shot in this case. But I know a lot of people want to get out on Christian Kirk too, might be willing to take the upside. So this is the trade that I actually put together because I definitely agree we need a wide receiver ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown. We have a short list of wide receivers I think we can put ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown. You listed 3 of them. I think there's only one left that's like locked and loaded ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown as of this very second. Realistically, not projecting. I'm going after CeeDee Lamb. I'm moving Jahmyr Gibbs plus a 24 first and Kadarius Toney or Sky Moore to do it, adding in a little wide receiver replacement, some upside, that 24 first and Jahmyr Gibbs. You got plenty of shiny objects in there. I think this is a pretty fair deal. This is an aggressive one, but it's one that if the year doesn't go as planned, you're still in good shape because CeeDee Lamb is an asset you can have for a while. And I think he's going to produce for a while too. So a nice asset you get to add on top to your team, and you get that bona fide wide receiver 1. I'd love to get Justin Jefferson. I'd love to get Jamar Chase. I'd love to get AJ Brown ahead of him, but this is another fail safe to try to get one of those elite players on your team. Moving on, since I moved a top running back on this team. If we're going to have any chance of competing, need to get one back. Moving Treylon Burks and a 24 second to go get Najee Harris and a 24 third. Just ranted and raved about Najee Harris on the last video on the channel. Go check it out if you hadn't already. Dynasty Rankings thumbnail, Najee Harris on the thumbnail. Definitely want some Najee Harris. I think he's a locked in, whether it's PPR or not, Najee's going to get enough work on the ground, going to be efficient enough, finally healthy. Still a bad offense, but guess what? When he was a running back one in 2021, his offense was just as bad. So don't believe the press. It was a Liz Frank issue. He's good now. Showed it off down the stretch last season. And I mentioned before that I want to get a better quarterback 2 on this roster. So I'm moving Jimmy G and a 24 third for either Kirk Cousins or Jared Goff. In a 1 quarterback, a 24 third is probably in and of itself more valuable in a lot of circles, especially compared to Jared Goff. More valuable than a Jared Goff. So you get a replacement quarterback as well. Get off Jimmy G. Just move on. Get to somebody a little more solid. And then you can kind of let Will Levis develop and see what he becomes. Then moving on to a tight end upgrade, I'd much rather find a way to go get Mark Andrews like you listed. If I could find a way to do that, I'm all about it, as opposed to going to get Dallas Goedert. I'm a lot less excited about the move. He's about like one of the last best tight ends I want, because I do think his scoring is so volatile. I think he's going to have a lot of the, games where you love having him, and then games you're shaking your head, why do I have this guy on my roster? I'd love to go get Mark Andrews like you noted. If you can find a way to that instead, using Ingram or Dulcich, however you want to get there in this deal, I put together Ingram or Dulcich, whichever one is more valuable to the opposing team, plus 24 second, plus Sky Moore. And then to bake in some upside to your tight end 2 slot, I just don't feel that Evan Ingram has a ton of upside in this offense anymore. We have to see if he's going to get a long-term deal. We have to see if Calvin Ridley is going to suck up a lot of target share away from what could be Evan Ingram's. I think Christian Kirk is safe. And I don't know that Dulcich is going to get enough work in his offense, because you look at the list of targets that have to go around in that offense. Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, then you have Marvin Mims trying to work his way into things, and then you have Greg Dulcich, who I really like. I like his talent. I like all the things about Greg Dulcich. But unless Cortland Sutton is traded, which has been rumored, same with Jerry Jeudy, I worry for what kind of work he's going to get. I think it's going to be an improved offense, but Dulcich, just kind of one of those players. I'd rather move to Chico Okonkwo. You can do that pretty much straight up 1-for-1. Try to pick flip if you can. If you can't, I'm pretty happy just taking the straight up trade. I think Chico Okonkwo has more upside in his offense, given his athletic prowess and the fact that he's looking like he's probably going to be the second target in that offense. Something we've noted with tight ends. You either need to be like a top option as a tight end, one of the top 2 options, or you need to be really freaking good. Dallas Goedert is really freaking good. That's why he still gets points down on the board. Chico Okonkwo is going to have opportunity to show that he can also possibly be really good and be worthy of being featured in that offense. We didn't talk on the cuts, but I think we have the same exact list. Robert Tonyan, Bayless Jones, Hassan Haskins, Malik Willis, and Josh Reynolds. Not sure if you did. I apologize if you did. We have the same list. All these guys in a 1 quarterback. You don't need to hold on to Malik Willis anymore. I think that ship has sailed. Hassan Haskins, I think he's the 3rd string runner on that team. Yay. Bayless Jones showed what he showed last year. Josh Reynolds, same thing. Robert Tonyan, probably a backup. So those are my deals, trying to get some more elite talent on this team, at least with 2 picks. And like I said, if we can find another way to get 2, maybe we pair Rashad Bateman and Greg Dulcich and that 24 second to go get Mark Andrews. We kind of combine our deals in a way that works us to a Mark Andrews. I think we're a little short on value still there, but at least it's a conversation or something that gets a conversation started. Maybe you can throw a 25 first into the deal. But Zach, feel free to touch on those. Otherwise, we are going to kick into this next segment. Do you have anything you want to add to that at all?
Yeah, I like the CeeDee Lamb trade. It's definitely one. If you're able to pull off Gibbs, a wide receiver, and a first for CeeDee Lamb, I'm trying to get a kickback on the draft pick. Sure. I'd settle for a 3rd, but I'd really try to wiggle a 2nd in there somehow. Just,
sure.
Oh, hey, it's going to be a late one.
Sure.
Just trying to wiggle that out there. With the Dulcich for Okonkwo, I don't see that happening just because of your philosophy. 1-for-1. You might have to sweeten the deal. And I like Dulcich. I'm not the biggest Okonkwo guy. I don't know why. No reason. Just what it is I'm not as high as everybody else. It's like the channel with Drake London. That's me with Chico Okonkwo. I'm just not 100%. There. I can be there. I'm not opposed to it. It's not Brandon Ayuk last year, but I like Dulcich. I don't think that's a necessary move, but that's fine. So yeah, I agree with a lot. I like the Najee Harris trade. That's one I haven't even thought about. And I like that you did that because you traded Jahmyr Gibbs. I thought that was a great kind of parlay of trades there.
Yeah. Well, once you open a gap on your roster, especially if you're trying to compete, you moved your 24 first, you may as well try. There's if you don't have your 24 first, there's not really incentive to tank outside of just, hey man, if there's like aging assets that you're just not going to win with anyway, getting them off your roster. But you move that first out of spite alone. You got to be trying to compete. You got to.
If you move that first, you're in. You're in.
Yeah.
You're in. There's no point in losing games. That's it.
So, Zach, before we get to closing thoughts, I wanted to talk some long-term strategy with this team. Since we didn't have a rookie draft to walk through, that's already done and gone. Just want to make sure we're putting in our effort as much as we can because I'm a stickler for that. But we've, kind of in a way, not successfully rebuilt this team, but we've taken this team a long way. Now what? How do we maintain this dynasty squad? How do we kind of take it to the next level beyond the trades? What are we doing strategy-wise going forward to, if it isn't, like we've said, ready to push for championship this year, how do we really take it that next step over the course of the season to get it ready for 2024 like you want to do?
Yeah, I think my first approach is I'm trying to get one of those big dog wide receivers like we talked about. I think that's just the main takeaway from this video. Is there needs to be an element of tearing up at wide receiver. I think what this team is hopeful of is that Drake London or Treylon Burks gets there, and I'm not close to it like everybody else on this channel is, but I'd just rather have like that. Like it's like a paycheck. It's coming in. It's coming in. Get that guaranteed money, right? You don't have that on your roster right now. And even if Drake London shows out this year or Treylon Burks shows out this year, their quarterback situations are crap. AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts. So they have more secure quarterback situations. So that's my first thing. The second thing that I'm doing here, Bob, is this might have to be a situation where you wait, because just as draft picks gain value towards the draft, now players gain value as we get closer towards the season. Be patient with this, because I think for this team, the key is just get in the playoffs. That's the key. Don't worry about the first or second seed. Just get in and take advantage of those teams that week 9 get a crippling injury and have suddenly turned their attention to 2024, and be a buyer. Then you can buy Cooper Kupp. Is Cooper Kupp playing really well like he was last year? Can you buy a 30-year-old wide receiver who still does have injury concerns, and you don't know how long that success is going to last, because McVay could retire next year. Stafford could retire next year. These are things you're using in a trade, by the way. I'm not just talking to you or Bob. These are things I'm using in a trade. So can you buy Cooper Kupp for cheap in week 10 because the owner of Cooper Kupp's team is now out of it? That's my approach. Besides trying to acquire one of the big dog wide receivers, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for injuries. I'm waiting for players I can buy low in 2024. Think J.K. Dobbins 2 years ago. Could you buy J.K. Dobbins on the cheap? Because I'm really gearing up for 2024 is what I'm doing on this team. So I'm not saying don't go for it this year. I'm saying be cautious with how you do that. Wait for good opportunities, and that might mean you have to wait in the season when team seasons are over, and now you can say, hey, do you want a second-round pick for XYZ? Do not go all in and try to win a championship right now, because you're not there just yet. We're waiting for some of these players to mature, and we really don't know where a lot of this team is going. I know we think we like it, but as Bob said, he's not a London and a Burks fan. As I've said, I think you need a little bit more. You need a hammer. You need a hammer somewhere. We don't have it on this team.
Yeah, definitely not in that wide receiver room. No, I 100% agree that I think, you do kind of get to, like, this team isn't bad enough where, we're definitely lacking wide receiver and tight end, especially for top end talent, in my opinion. I don't think it's bad enough to a point. Like, I think your running backs can kind of carry you with how good they are. And I think your quarterback can carry you a good bit with how good I think Justin Fields is going to be this year. If you could pull together some games and keep yourself in it and kind of just win the war of attrition, pick up what you can along the way, ideally you get some hammers on this team that you're making your team a little more competitive. Now we're just going to say hammers all the time too, because that's the thing now, apparently. I'm out of the loop, I guess. I'm out of touch. But, the one thing I did with all of my trades, and this is talking more just in terms of longevity with keeping this roster in tow and being able to keep assets coming out of the team, I spent with a lot of my trades, I spent so much draft capital to go make these trades happen. And, now we have to go and try to compete and that's why we made all these moves and all the things. But we need to be mindful of how we can get that draft capital back, because if we don't have that, we lose out on a lot of opportunities. We are going to just naturally miss out on trades. If we can find ways to move, if Sky Moore starts getting hype in camp, or Kadarius Toney, or Jalen Hyatt, any of these guys, can you flip them for a second round pick? Can you flip Kadarius Toney for a first round pick like he was going for when he was traded to the Chiefs the first time? Can you make moves like that? If James Cook goes down, can you trade Damian Harris? If Zach Evans is a thing, can you trade him if you want to? If Saquon Barkley starts sitting out games, is Eric Gray somebody you can put on the block and afford losing off your team? Just need to make sure that we're being mindful of situations where we can capitalize on value scouting, turning over the bottom of our roster, finding ways to add draft capital next year from what we depleted, and try to make our draft capital better for next year. We'll only have a second round pick if you get all the trades done that I suggested. So that's one thing. If you want to be able to keep bringing youth onto your roster and being able to revitalize your roster, you're not going to be able to do that without draft picks, and that's just to make your team last longer. Or you also are going to need picks to go buy the Mike Evans or buy the Cooper Kupp once that time comes and that team is out of the race and they're just trying to, hey man, I don't know if Cooper Kupp's going to be worth anything after the season, because who knows if he's finished as healthy, who knows if he's producing to the same level. He is, I believe, in his age 30 season or age 29 season. He's getting older. So you never know. You never know how he's going to bounce back, and you never know if you're going to be able to move that person after that window of need has kind of closed with Cooper Kupp, which is going to be this season, playoff run, and then his value is just going to tank, because it will. That's just how veterans work. That's how veterans operate. After the season is over, we just assume that their value's done. Not intentionally, not personally, but that's a lot of the fear with these aging vets. But you will need draft picks to go get them, to pull them off rosters that feel like they're out of it and they want to re-roll and get better for next year. Well, those are going to be the pieces down the stretch that I think take this team out of the rebuild completely, put it into the playoffs, and possibly, like you said, once you get to the dance, if you have just more pieces lasting and more pieces that are hopefully producing at high-end levels, and you were just there first to go get Cooper Kupp, to possibly go get Mike Evans if he's still kicking around, you might win just off that urgency. And I think those are all huge takeaways. But Johnny, appreciate the heck out of you for supporting this brand, not only on the Patreon, but picking up one of these audits as well. Appreciate the heck out of you. If you want to have your team looked at by me or Zach or anybody else on the Dynasty Rewind team, there's a link in the description box below or in the pinned comment below. We've recently updated our pricings and offerings and things like that. So if you want to get your team looked at, if you want to get it looked at by us or any other members of the team, be sure to check out payhip.com/Dynasty Rewind for more details. But that is going to be it for this one. We will see you in the next one. But until then, y'all have a good one.